You've been chasing love like it's a prize to be won. But what if the real battle was never out there? It was inside you, all along. This isn't about her. It's about the truth no one wants to face. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel quiet at all. It hums, it presses. It lives in the space between midnight and morning, when your body's tired, but your brain won't shut up. That's where I live now, between exhaustion and overdrive. Sometimes I wonder if we're all just walking mazes of inherited pain and unspoken fears, pretending to be whole while silently falling apart. Like the people we love aren't really betraying us, they're betraying something inside themselves they don't even know how to name. Maybe she didn't leave you on purpose. Maybe she was just being pulled by something older than her, some invisible current beneath the surface of her mind that she never learned how to swim against. Freud tried to map these hidden places once. He poked around in the dark corners of human behavior until he found things people didn't want to see. Patterns, wounds passed down like heirlooms. Things that make us act before we think, push away before we connect, break what we need most before we even realize we had it. And maybe that's why so many of us feel like ghosts in our own lives, haunted not by others, but by the parts of ourselves we've never been taught how to meet. We carry expectations, old scripts, inherited trauma dressed up as normalcy. And we wonder why we're exhausted, why we can't sleep, why every interaction sometimes feels like a performance, like we're faking strength we don't have or hiding cracks we're ashamed to show. This isn't about blame. Not hers, not yours. This is about seeing clearly through the fog of modern life, the endless noise, the curated perfection, the pressure to keep going even when your soul is whispering, stop. Because real strength isn't about never breaking. It's about learning how to bend without losing yourself. It's about recognizing that sometimes the person hurting you isn't trying to destroy you. They're just carrying their own silent war. And maybe once you start seeing that, the weight doesn't feel quite so personal. It still hurts, yeah, but it starts to shift from rage to sadness, then to understanding, then to something like peace. Not because everything's fixed, but because you finally stop fighting ghosts long enough to breathe again. So here's to the quiet ones, the overthinkers, the burnout survivors, the lovers who gave too much and ended up with too little. You're not broken, just deeply, beautifully human. And maybe that's enough for tonight. There's a kind of heartbreak that doesn't scream. It doesn't slam doors or yell across rooms. It just leaves, quietly, like smoke slipping through your fingers before you even realize you were holding on. She looked at you like she meant it. Not the fake kind, not the one we scroll past on dating apps or hear in half-hearted texts. No, this was different. She listened, really listened. She told you about her fears, her dreams, the way she used to love and got hurt. You believed her because she wasn't hiding behind armor. She was soft, open, real, and so you gave her everything. Not just time or attention. Those are easy. You gave her the parts no one else sees, the quiet corners of your mind, the places where you're unsure of yourself, the things you whisper only to the dark when sleep won't come. You trusted her with your fragile self, and for a while she held it gently. Then, without warning, she vanished. No fight, no explanation, just silence, the kind that echoes louder than yelling. So now you sit here, middle of the night, staring at a ceiling you've memorized from too many nights like this, running every word, every pause, every look back through your head like a movie you can't stop re-watching, searching for the scene. where it all went wrong. But there is no scene. There is no mistake you made. There is only absence. And maybe that's what hurts most, not that she left, but that you did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. Freud called it the unconscious, a part of us that moves beneath the surface, pulling strings we don't even know are attached. He said most of what we do isn't really us doing it. It's the old wounds, the buried fears, the instincts we inherited from people we never met but carry inside us anyway. She told you she wanted loyalty. She meant it. She told you she wanted peace. She believed it. She held your hand like she was choosing forever. And maybe, in that moment, she was. But something deeper, older, was already stirring. Her unconscious mind, trained by years of navigating shame instead of guilt, began to pull her away long before her words caught up. Maybe she felt herself getting too close, too vulnerable. Maybe being seen that clearly triggered something primal. A fear of exposure, of losing control, of being judged not by you, but by the voices inside her that never really stopped talking. This isn't about blaming her, or you. This is about seeing the pattern, the invisible machinery grinding behind our choices. Women aren't always guided by logic or declared values. We live in a world that teaches them to shrink, to please, to survive socially at any cost. Their decisions often come from a place they themselves can't explain, even if they want to. So she disappeared, not because of you, because of something inside her that even she couldn't name. You're not alone in this confusion. In fact, this is the most human thing there is, being betrayed not by someone else's cruelty, but by their unknowing, by the parts of them that were never taught how to be whole. We all carry these ghosts. Some wear them like second skins. Others try to outrun them in relationships, in work, in curated lives that look put together from the outside, but feel like chaos inside. Burnout isn't just working too much. It's carrying too many unspoken fears. Overthinking isn't just overanalyzing. It's trying to find control in a world that keeps slipping through your hands. Social comparison isn't just envy. It's a search for proof that you're not falling behind, that you're still real to the world. And sometimes, heartbreak is just the symptom of a deeper sickness we all share. The illusion that we're fully in charge of ourselves. But maybe knowing that helps. A little. Maybe it helps to understand that she didn't vanish because you failed her. She vanished because something inside her failed first. And she didn't even see it coming. So tonight, as you sit with this, wait again, no answers, no closure, just the ache. You don't have to pretend it doesn't matter. You don't have to move on or find someone better. You just have to stay here with yourself in the quiet and remember, you are not broken for feeling this deeply. You are just alive. And sometimes that's more than enough. There are moments when it feels like you've finally landed, like after years of drifting, you're not just seen, but felt. She looks at you like you matter, not in the way people do when they're trying to impress, but like she's chosen you with her whole self. And for a while, everything settles. The noise in your head quiets. You let go of the overthinking, the second guessing, the exhausting habit of scanning every message for hidden meaning. Then, 3 days later, it's gone. No warning, no explanation. Just silence. The kind that doesn't scream or cry. It just is. Cold, final, confusing. You replay it all. Every word, every touch. Trying to find the crack you missed. Wondering what you did wrong. If you said too much, too little. If you got too close. Or maybe not close enough. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. It wasn't about you. Something inside her shifted. something she didn't even feel happening. One day she was leaning into you, and the next, without realizing why, she was pulling away. Freud talked about this, how much of what we feel, say, and do comes from somewhere deeper than thought. And now science is catching up, not just with theories, but with data, with blood tests, hormone charts, brain scans that show how our bodies move through time, not just as machines, but as constantly shifting ecosystems. For women, especially, the body is its own tide pool, rising and falling with hormones that shape mood, desire, connection. During ovulation, there's a flood of openness, attraction, warmth. She might have looked at you then and thought, this could be forever. And she meant it. But then came the fall, her period. Her hormones dipped. Her body whispered old survival instincts. Pull back, protect yourself, question closeness. Suddenly, the world felt different. You hadn't changed, but her biology had. And she didn't even know it was happening. She told herself a story to make sense of the shift. I thought I wanted this. We don't really click. Maybe I'm not ready. But none of it was a choice. Not really. It was her body speaking a language she never learned to translate. And you? You were left holding the echo of a feeling she didn't even get to name before. It was gone. That's the cruelest part. It feels personal. Like rejection. Like failure. But it's not. It's primal. A rhythm older than language. Older than love. And she never even got to vote. So here you are again, middle of the night, wrestling with thoughts that won't sit still. Overthinking, second guessing, wondering if you'll ever catch a break, if you'll ever meet someone who stays. But maybe tonight, instead of blaming yourself or her, you can hold space for the truth. We are all navigating something bigger than ourselves. We carry generations of fear, instinct, and miscommunication in these bodies. And sometimes, the people we connect with disappear not because of us, but because of something ancient and invisible moving inside them. You're not broken for feeling confused. You're not weak for needing more. You're just human, trying to love in a world that rarely teaches us how to stay. And that's okay. Tonight, it's okay to hurt, to not have answers, to sit with the silence, because healing doesn't always come with closure. Sometimes it just comes with understanding. There are wounds we carry that don't belong to us, not really. They were handed down like old furniture, worn and uncomfortable, but familiar enough that we never think to throw them out. Freud called it the mother complex, a name so clinical it almost softens the ache. But what he meant was this: most of us aren't really chasing love. We're chasing a version of it we learned before we could speak, before we could choose. We're chasing the echo of her voice, the one that told us we were loved when we behaved, or ignored when we didn't. Or worse, the one that disappeared entirely, leaving us to grow up wondering if something inside us was broken from the start. If your mother only saw you clearly when you did what she wanted. If she withdrew when you tried to be yourself. If she made you feel guilty for needing space, for growing up, for wanting more. Then you weren't just raised. You were trained. And that training doesn't end when childhood does. It follows you into adulthood like a ghost no one else can see. It lives in the way you apologize for taking up space, in the way you twist yourself to fit someone else's idea of love, in the way you confuse control with care, distance with affection, punishment with intimacy. Because that's what you learned. That love is conditional. That attention is earned. That warmth comes and goes depending on how well you perform. So you grow up and fall in love with people who remind you of her. Not the woman she was, but the energy she carried, the push, pull, the warmth that turns cold without warning, a silence after closeness. And every time it happens, you ask yourself why you keep choosing the same pain. But you're not choosing it, you're repeating it. Because breaking a pattern feels like losing part of yourself. Freud said that to become a man, you have to break the emotional bond with your mother. Not physically, not even angrily, but internally. You have to stop looking at every woman through the lens of what you needed from her. You have to stop mistaking familiarity for safety. You have to stop giving other people permission to parent you. Most of us never do. We just trade one version of the same cycle for another. We burn out trying to prove our worth. We overthink. Every withdrawal, every pause, every shift in tone, because somewhere deep down, we're still that child wondering, did I do something wrong? We compare ourselves to others, not because we envy them, but because we need proof that we're seen, that we matter, that we're finally enough. But here's the quiet truth we don't say out loud. You were never supposed to carry this weight. You were never supposed to confuse abandonment with love. You were never supposed to apologize for being human. And maybe healing doesn't start with forgiveness. Maybe it starts with recognition, with seeing clearly, in the middle of the night, that the pain you keep feeling isn't brand new. It's been with you all along, just dressed in different faces, different voices, different silences. So tonight, wherever you are in your bed, on your couch, staring at a ceiling that knows your secrets, you don't have to fix anything. You don't have to understand it all yet. Just sit with it. Let yourself feel the ache without rushing to explain it away. Because the first step, too, breaking a pattern isn't strength. It's awareness. And you've already taken it. There's a kind of love that feels like salvation until it starts to slip through your fingers. You meet her and she's different. Not in the way people usually are at first, when everything is still surface level and shiny. No, she feels real. She talks about books, about meaning, about connection, deeper than screens and small talk. She says she's done with games, done with lies. And you believe her. Because for once, you don't feel like you have to prove yourself. You let go of the armor. You open up. You finally breathe. You think, this is it. Someone who gets me. Someone who sees me. And one day, something shifts. Not loud. Not obvious. Just her laughter fades. Her eyes don't land on yours anymore. They pass right through, like you're not even there. And then comes the phrase we all know too well. It's not you. It's me. But here's the truth she doesn't say out loud. It was you. Not because you failed. Not because you were wrong. But because you forgot something no one ever teaches us. She wasn't fully in control of what she wanted. We're taught to trust words. To believe that when someone says they want peace, they mean it. That when they promise loyalty, they'll keep it. But Freud saw something darker, something quieter. He said our desires aren't always ours to command. They come from places we barely understand, places buried deep beneath logic and language. Every woman carries an old wound, one most never speak of. Freud called it the mother's shadow, the unspoken grief that lives inside every woman, who once held her child close, only to realize one day he would leave. That pain gets passed down, generation after generation. A silent ache that whispers, love ends. And so, somewhere deep inside, women learn to prepare for the end before it even comes. They take in affection like oxygen. They build homes, relationships, families. But when things finally feel safe, their unconscious begins to stir. Not out of cruelty, not out of planning, but because part of them has never believed in forever. Is this all there is? What else is out there? That voice is soft, barely audible, but it's strong enough to pull her away. And if you don't see, It coming. If you believed her when she said it was different this time, you'll be left standing in silence, wondering how you lost something you didn't even see slipping. Because it wasn't just her heart that changed. It was her biology, her instincts, the ancient wiring that tells her body to test, to pull back, to leave, not because she hates you, but because she's searching for something she can't name. Back. In tribal times, women tested men without words. They watched who could hold steady under pressure, who wouldn't break when the world got cold. And if you passed the early tests, you were chosen. But if you stayed too steady, if you became too available, too predictable, too safe, her body began to wonder, where's the fire? Where's the challenge? She told you she hated drama. She meant it. She told you she wanted peace. She believed. But what her unconscious craved was energy, mystery, a spark, something dangerous wrapped in kindness. And when you gave her peace, she felt powerless. When you gave her safety, she felt invisible. Because desire doesn't live in the mind, it lives in the shadows, in the parts of us that don't reason, don't explain, just feel. So she pulled. Away. Maybe she fought with you. Maybe she disappeared. Maybe she whispered, "You're too good for me," as if that was some kind of honor. But it wasn't. It was a goodbye dressed up in guilt. You didn't lose her because you weren't enough. You lost her because she couldn't stay where she felt too comfortable. Because love, for many of us, isn't built to last. It's built to burn bright and then fade. And the hardest part? She didn't even see it happening. So tonight, wherever you are, in bed, on the couch, staring at a ceiling that's heard every version of your sadness, you don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt. You don't have to fix anything or understand it all yet. Just sit with it. Let the weight settle. Because healing doesn't start with answers. It starts with naming the truth, even when it stings. You are never broken for feeling deeply. You were just human, trying to hold on to something that was never meant to be held forever. And that's okay. More than okay. It's real. And in a world full of masks and illusions, real is rare. There's a silence that lives inside every relationship that ends without explanation. Not the loud kind, no shouting, no cheating, no betrayal you can name. Just a shift, a quiet unraveling. And when it happens, you find yourself asking the same question over and over. Who was she, really? Because she wasn't just one woman. Freud saw this once, something most people are too afraid to admit out loud. That inside every woman are two selves. One walks in the light, the other lives in the shadow. The first is the one you met, the kind eyes, the gentle voice, the warmth that felt like home. She smiled in the way you hoped meant forever. She said all the right things, about love, about loyalty, about wanting something real. She made you feel safe, seen, understood. And maybe she meant it. Maybe she still means it. But there's another part of her, one she barely knows herself. A part that doesn't speak in polite tones or wear soft smiles. This part is wild, hungry, restless. It doesn't want peace. It wants fire. It doesn't crave comfort. It craves chaos. Not because she's broken, not because she's cruel, but because we all have parts of ourselves we've buried to survive in the world. She hides this side even from herself. The quiet girl who reads romance novels, but dreams of being overpowered by someone she can't trust. The feminist who speaks about equality with conviction, yet feels drawn to the man who leaves her guessing. The loyal partner who laughs at your jokes and holds your hand, but sometimes imagines walking away for no reason at all. That isn't evil. It's human. It's what happens when we push down pieces of ourselves to fit into roles we're told. We should play. We don't lose those parts. We lock them away. And they grow. They twist. They wait. And one day they rise not as rebellion, not as revenge, but as something deeper. An unspoken hunger that suddenly has weight. A choice she doesn't understand. A feeling she can't explain. That's the truth no one talks about. She didn't stop loving you. At least, not the version of her you knew. But the version of her that never learned how to hold both sides? That part of her never needed saving. It needed freedom. Even if that freedom came in the form of silence, of distance, of walking away from something good, just to feel something real. So here you are again, middle of the night, tangled in thoughts that won't sit still, overthinking, wondering, questioning whether it was ever real at all. But maybe tonight, instead of trying to fix it or forget it, you let yourself feel it. Because healing doesn't come from understanding every detail. It comes from sitting with the ache long enough to realize it doesn't mean you were weak. It means you loved someone complex. Someone who carried more than she could say. Someone who was never just one thing. And maybe that helps. Maybe not today, but someday. When the noise settles, and the silence finally feels like peace instead of loss. You've seen it happen. Maybe even lived it. She falls for the one who hurts her. The man who comes and goes like a ghost, who lies without flinching, who leaves her crying, and then whispers sweet words just when she's about to walk away. She swears she's done, swears she deserves better. And then there you are. You show up with both hands open. You listen. You stay. You love her without games, without tests, without disappearing acts. But she doesn't feel this spark. And you sit there, late at night, replaying every moment in your head, asking yourself how someone so intelligent, so strong, could miss the difference between real love and something that only looks like pain dressed up as passion. But here's the quiet truth no one wants to say. It wasn't about what she wanted. It was about what her body had already learned to crave. When she was with him, the one who hurt her, her brain was on a roller coaster. A cycle of chaos and closeness, silence and apology, pain and relief. Every high came after a low. Every kiss tasted sweeter after a fight. Her nervous system became addicted to the rhythm of uncertainty. Dopamine spiked when he returned after days of silence. Cortisol flooded her veins during the waiting, the guessing, the fear. Oxytocin tricked her into believing closeness, even if it only lasted minutes. This cocktail of chemicals is powerful. Addictive. It's not love, it's survival chemistry. The kind our ancestors felt in times of danger, when connection meant staying alive, when unpredictability kept them alert, awake, alive. So when you showed up, kind, steady, present, you didn't trigger those same reactions. You weren't chaotic. You didn't make her feel like she was fighting for something. You gave her peace, but peace doesn't light up the brain the same way. Not when her body had already been trained to equate love with turbulence. Freud saw this long before neuroscience gave it a name. He understood that desire isn't always rational, that women aren't always drawn to what's good for them, not because they're broken or weak, but because part of them is still listening to ancient instincts we rarely talk about. The dark triad traits, narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, weren't attractive because they were evil. They were attractive because they once meant survival, power, control, certainty in a world full of risk. And even now, buried beneath layers of modernity, part of her biology still responds to that energy, even if her mind tells her she should want more. So when you offer safety, she hears predictability. When you give her consistency, she feels boredom. Not because you're boring, because her body has forgotten how to feel alive without drama. There's another truth hiding behind that one even harder to face. She's afraid of her own desires, not the soft ones, not the dreams of partnership or gentle intimacy. No, she fears the darker parts of herself, the ones that feel powerful when she controls someone, the ones that get a strange thrill from being chased, the ones that pull away from good men just to prove she can, the ones that whisper, "I don't need anyone, but I'll take your heart anyway." She may smile while doing it. She may tell herself she's choosing freedom, but inside she wrestles with shame. Shame for craving control over comfort, for wanting intensity instead of peace, for hurting someone who truly loved her. And rather than face that part of herself, rather than admit that some part of her liked the power she held, she does what most of us do when we're scared. She runs. She blames. She disappears. "I don't feel it anymore." You're too much. Silence, and you're left sitting with the weight of it all, wondering why love so often feels like punishment. Why the people who say they want peace keep chasing chaos. Burnout doesn't always come from work. Overthinking doesn't always start with failure. Social comparison isn't always envy. It's often a search for proof that you matter, that you're chosen, that you're not invisible. And sometimes, loving someone means realizing that their chaos wasn't your fault, that their choices weren't your responsibility, that their darkness had nothing to do with your light. So tonight, wherever you are, in your bed, on your couch, staring at a ceiling that knows your secrets, don't rush to fix the ache. Don't try to explain it all away. Just let it be. Let it breathe. Let it remind you that you are never broken for feeling deeply. You are just human, trying to love, in a world where most of us are still learning how to be whole. And that's enough. More than enough. There's a moment in every deep connection when the mask starts to slip. Not all at once, but in tiny cracks when she forgets to edit herself mid-conversation, when her eyes betray something deeper than her words, when silence stretches long enough that even the air feels heavier. And in that moment, you see her. Not the version she curates for social media or first dates or polite conversations over coffee. No, you see the real her. The one who lies not out of malice, but out of fear. The one who manipulates not because she's cruel, but because she's terrified of losing control. The one who says she hates the man who treats her badly, but still feels drawn to him like a moth to flame. You see the part of her that doesn't make sense, even to herself. The messy, tangled, contradictory parts she hides behind smiles and soft voices. And instead of turning away, you stay. You don't flinch. You don't judge. You just hold space for it all. And that's when the real panic begins. Because now she has no story left to tell herself. No reason to run. She can't blame you for not understanding, for not trying hard enough, for not loving her right, because you did. You saw her, fully, and you stayed. And that's what undoes her. Because the thing she feared wasn't rejection. It was acceptance. Not yours, it was hers. She couldn't face the idea that someone could love the truth of her and still choose to stay. Because then there would be nowhere left to hide. No more excuses. No more running. So she does the only thing she knows how to do. She leaves anyway. Not because you did anything wrong. Not because you pushed too hard or got too close, but because being seen, truly seen, is one of the most terrifying things a person can endure. We talk about loneliness like it's about being alone, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes loneliness lives inside us, even in the presence of someone who loves. U.S. Because what we really fear isn't being alone. It's being known. And when that knowing comes, and we realize we can't hide anymore, something inside us breaks, or begins to heal. She ran not from you, but from the mirror you held up to her soul, one that showed her everything she's been avoiding all along. This isn't about blame. It's about recognition of the ways we all protect ourselves, of the stories we tell to feel safe, of the ways we push people away just when they get close enough to remind us who we really are. If this is your pain tonight, if you're the one left wondering why love so often ends in silence, you don't have to understand it all yet. You don't have to fix anything. Just sit with it. Let the ache breathe. Let yourself feel what it means to truly see someone and still be left behind. Because that kind of heartbreak isn't weakness. It's courage. And somewhere beneath the hurt, it's also healing. Because you loved deeply. You showed up fully. And that's rare. More rare than running. More rare than hiding. More rare than pretending. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from working too much or sleeping too little. It comes from giving too much of yourself to something that never quite gives back. Love sometimes feels like that, like you poured your whole self into a space that was never really yours to begin with. And somewhere in the middle of the night, when your thoughts won't quiet and your body feels heavy with confusion, you wonder, why don't they ever tell us how it really works? Freud didn't write this part down. Maybe he knew people weren't ready for it. But somewhere between his theories and the silence that followed, there was a truth men rarely talk about. A quiet war being fought, not with weapons, but with need, silence, and control. Because yes, men can win. Not in the way we've been taught, with kindness alone, or by waiting patiently for someone to finally get us. That path leads only to burnout, to overthinking, to watching someone walk away while you ask yourself what more you could have done. No, the real game isn't about doing more. It's about needing less. That first rule, it cuts deep. The more you need her, the less she wants you. Women feel desperation before you even say it. Not in words, but in energy. In the way you watch her texts like they're oxygen. In the way you twist yourself to fit her moods. They don't fear rejection. They fear a man who needs them. Because that kind of neediness doesn't feel like love. It feels like pressure. So pull back before she does. Let silence grow where your words used to rush in. Make her wonder if maybe, just maybe, you're not as easy as she thought. You'll feel strange at first, like you're breaking some unspoken rule. But here's the thing about rules. They were written by people who never had to play the game. Second lesson, don't explain yourself. They say women want honesty, and they do. Just not the kind that sounds like justification. Not the kind that comes from a man trying to prove he's worthy. That kind shrinks him, makes him small, makes him desperate. Let your presence speak louder than your explanations. Let your silence carry weight. Let her feel what she can't name, and chase it. And then there's the third one, the hardest one. See her darkness and don't flinch. Every woman carries it. The parts she hides even from herself. The lies she tells not to hurt you, but to test you. The moments when she lashes out, not because of something you did, but because of something inside her she doesn't know how to face. Most men run. Most men fight. Most men beg or plead or try to fix it. But you stay. You smile when she tests you. You stay calm when she tries to provoke you. You laugh, not mockingly, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows the storm won't knock him down. She might try to hate you. She might want to push you away. But if you don't let her, if you show up steady, grounded, unshakable, she starts to see something she didn't expect. Not a boy looking for approval. not a man chasing validation, a presence she can't control. And that terrifies her. And strangely, it draws her in. This isn't about manipulation. It's not about playing games just to win. It's about reclaiming your power, about refusing to be ruled by the unconscious forces pulling at both of you. Because Freud's final message wasn't about women. It was about you. Stop trying to win her game. Start playing yours. And if this hits hard, if it lands somewhere deep, then maybe it's time to stop blaming yourself for every relationship that didn't work out. Maybe it's time to stop asking what you did wrong and start asking, what was I never told? Type unconscious. In the silence tonight, whisper it to yourself if you need to. Because the moment you start seeing through the noise, through the patterns, through the masks, weirdly, you start seeing yourself more clearly. And that's where your strength begins. Not in chasing, not in explaining, not in needing, but in showing up fully, quietly, unshakably, and letting the right ones find you. So tell me this, if the real game was never about her, but about who you become while playing, then who are you choosing to be? Drop your answer in the comments. If this hit you deep, hit like, share this with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe, because the next video might just change the way you see everything.